Hello and welcome back to the Brit Iron podcast. Today we are continuing our run through of our team rankings and team previews, and it's the 27th pick in our rankings today, and it's one of some significant value to one of our members, being that is the Giants, and that Sam is a huge Giants fan. And of course as well, we've also got Matt here as well to discuss the Giants.
To rip into Sam's Giants.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I know, I'm quite low on them.
I think I'm going to have some hot takes compared to
So I guess then we'll get Sam to kick it off and get a few of his hot takes for his team.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off. Obviously, we've got our consensus rankings that put the Giants at 27 overall, and our consensus rankings have the Giants winning 4.6 games. So let's take that 4.5 games over under. The reason this is so high is because I've gone relatively high, and I reckon they're going to win 7-ish games. I think they're that kind of team. They could very easily lose that, but when you look at last year, there were a number of games that were one-score games, and that's with a rookie Daniel Jones. Now, when we drafted Daniel Jones number 6, everyone, including myself, was sat watching that going, what is going on here? You've got a guy out of Duke who wasn't incredible at Duke by any means, wasn't really playing with much talent at Duke, but he wasn't really, at the time, considered worthy of a 6th overall pick. In retrospect of his rookie season, maybe he is. He played in 12 games last year, 24 touchdowns to 12 picks, which is good for a rookie. You take out the New England game, where he only threw 1 touchdown but 3 picks, and suddenly you've got an 11 games of 23 touchdowns and 9 picks across 11 games, which is a 16-game pace of 32 touchdowns, which is legitimate high-end NFL starter numbers. He can sling the ball. He isn't as interception prone as some people think he might have been. He's got a bit of an issue with fumbling the ball, but that can be worked on. He's got some wheels on him. He does run the ball, which, again, people weren't necessarily expecting. And the thing I really like going forward with this team is the weapons we have on offense. Now, they might not be massive names, but when you look at where the NFL's heading, even with the kind of get playmakers that are just speed, quietly, the Giants have assembled the fastest offense in the league. When you take the 40 times of all of our offensive starters, they're faster on average than even Kansas City, which I really like. So the fact that I know he can throw over the top, but he can also throw a 5-yard pass, and then someone like Darius Slayton can take it 80 to the house just off of being an absolute burner, I really like. That being said, don't like our defense at all. We've got a couple young pieces who I think are going to work into being solid NFL starters. I like Jabril Peppers. I think Xavier McKinney, who we took in this year's draft, has got the potential. But I think he'll show up. Yeah, he's got the potential to show in something. But everything else on that defense, I think we're going to be negative game scripts a lot. So we're going to rely on a fast offense and a good offense. But I think with the second-year Daniel Jones kind of working his way into the league, some of those one-score games that we were losing last year could very easily flip, and you could find a team that are very middle of the road with a lot of potential going forward. So I'm quite high on the Giants in general, considering their division and the offense we've got. So I'm going to hand this over to Matt to just destroy everything I've just said.
No, I'm not going to be that hard on it. I think, for me, we've said a lot of one-score games. I don't know if for this year there's enough to quite overturn all of that yet, which I think I've got them at 4 and 12. I think there's a lot of pieces there, and there's a lot of promise there, but I still think the defense is still going to be, I think, a little bit too leaky and not quite enough for Daniel Jones to keep pace with. I think it'll be interesting to see, can he build on his rookie year, which it's always, this is the big tell for any young quarterback. If they've had a serviceable year one or good year one, can they keep it going? Which I think he's definitely shown, that he should be able to. It's just, keeping interceptions in check and not having too many of those Patriots games. But I think I'd like to see him do well. I think it's one of those players that he definitely could develop into the franchise guy there and just be never a guy that's less than going to be the massive guy you talk about in fantasy that's like the week winner. but is a serviceable option that is just, he's a staple of the league and the team.
I think he could turn into a better Eli Manning.
Yes, I think that's a very.
Yeah.
I think that was always this. That's always been sort of where he's been pitched, isn't it? He's literally little Eli that could turn out to become better as he develops. I think for me, the problem is going to be these negative game scripts. I think it's just you're going to be constantly playing from behind, and that does worry me. He's going to maybe be overthrowing it and trying to do too much. Coming into a second year, and he's going to be trying to prove that he is that guy. But I think then again, when you've got a player like Saquon Barkley in your team, you know you've got that there to lean on. They've strengthened the O-line with Andrew Thomas, left tackle, which is going to be big for them, big for Saquon.
Massive.
And I think they're getting there towards starting to come up again. But I just think this year, not quite yet for me.
Yes. See, my take on it is that I'm not as high as Sam is, and I'm a little bit less high than you, Matt. I think I've gone for 3 wins and 13 losses, and a lot of that is down to the schedule and who they're playing. For me, I think they've got about the 26th toughest schedule in the league, roughly. And it's not to do with Daniel Jones either. He's, he came in 6th pick and he had a lot to prove, and I think he's starting to do that. So he's grown on me, and I'm growing into a Daniel Jones fan. Again, the leaky defense is an issue, but for me, it's the schedule. I've only got them having 3 wins, and those were 2 against the Redskins and 1 against the Bengals. In their team, the Cowboys and the Eagles, I'm a bit higher on them, and I feel like they can win against the Giants in both of those games. So that's the only reason I've got them low, but I think there is a lot of potential in that team, and like you say, leaning on Saquon is never a bad thing to do.
Yeah, I think so as well. The way you've mentioned the Cowboys, Eagles, they're going to be in those games. I don't think this is a thing where you're going to, as a Giants fan, be sat there every week knowing what's coming. It's gonna be an interesting one to watch. I think it's gonna be quite enjoyable for you as a Giants fan. I think you'll be competitive in games. I just don't think you've got enough to flip those one scores in your favour yet.
I mean, exactly as a Giants fan, I would not be shocked or even disappointed if we went 3-13, 4-12, just because I think the defense is a real issue. Yeah. You're going to have to expect that Daniel Jones comes out and plays at a high level in order to keep you in games, because they're going to have to throw a shed ton, and Saquon is going to get a hell of a lot of carries, and you're expecting a lot from the offense. But I think if the offense can come out, they've got all the pieces they need to keep them in games. And I think the fact that Daniel Jones is in his second year and isn't a rookie anymore, if he can clean up some of those fumbles, suddenly those one score losses, you scratch out a couple more 1-score wins, and you're rather than being a 4-12 team, you're a 6-10 or 7-9, and that is the kind of progression I'm looking for. Because then, if you can then the year after, you focus your draft and free agency on defense, and suddenly you've got a team that starts to look like it could contend for a playoff spot.
I think this is always the interesting thing as well. This end of the list, the less glamorous end of the list, a couple games can flip it completely. In terms of their records. So I think a lot of these teams wouldn't be shocked if they do come on better, especially the Giants is one of them. And as we said, I think in the previous episode, the Chargers were another. They're those kind of teams that if they just flip a couple of those game scripts, get a couple wins here and there, it suddenly looks a lot better. Because if you're 6-10, looks a lot better than 4-12.
Yeah.
But I think it's just not quite there for me yet. I don't think in a purely football point. I think there's fantasy value in this team, which is something I really want to go through and get your take on. But I think there's definitely some later round and underdrafted talent for this one. For me, obviously you've got Saquon. He's going in the top, normally the top 4, if not top 3.
Yeah.
I think it's a personal preference call. I think McCaffrey's got to be your 1.1 if you've got the first pick. But after that, it's a personal preference decision. We know where he's going. You know what to expect from him. Is there anyone for you, Sam, as a Giants fan, that really jumps out for fantasy?
Slayton. I think both Slayton and Daniel Jones are going to be really great late round picks, because I think you're going to get a ton of production from them for little to no investment. Slayton is probably going to be going after the 8th or 9th round, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I'd
in
put
most drafts.
10,
I mean, Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to take Slayton anywhere from the 8th round on. I think you'll get that kind of payback from him. And Daniel Jones, in some leagues, if you're in an 8-man league, Daniel Jones may very well not even get drafted. But I think he could be a top 6 quarterback.
I think he's worth looking at in Dynasty.
He's going to throw...
Dynasty, definitely.
Yeah, but even in redraft leagues, I think he's going to be the kind of guy who will be... He won't be... In an 8-man league, he could very easily go undrafted, at which point you can pick him up and start him. I think he could be a top 6 quarterback this year.
I think he's streamable against the right teams. If you pick out the right parts of that schedule, then 100%. I think maybe, top, depending on your scoring format, top 6 could be a ceiling. I think realistically, I'm not as high on him to that point, but I think in certain weeks, I would not be surprised if you get multiple top 6, top 5 weeks out of him.
I think his ceiling, as you said, is top 6, like top end, but I think his floor is really high because of the game scripts.
Yeah, that would definitely play in his favour.
It would not surprise me if he is consistently a top 10 quarterback, whereas someone maybe like Drew Brees in when he's just checking down and running the ball against easy games and then not driving up the score, it possibly isn't as consistent. I really like Daniel Jones going into this year. I think he's going to throw a lot of yards. I think he's going to throw quite a lot of touchdowns. And I think it's the game scripts which really, for where you can get him, I think he might be one of the most valuable players in fantasy this year.
I think, maybe not to the same level, most valuable in fantasy, but I think he's going to be, I think, a QB1, a top 12 QB on the year. I'd be surprised if he falls below that level. I don't think there's any way he does. I think you can see him in there. But I think it's one of those guys you don't necessarily need to go out and grab in a draft. I think he's a streaming option. I think you stream him in where you want him. If across the first, 6, 7 games, you've realized he's just, in the negative game scripts, putting up solid numbers, not throwing the picks, he's developing on that first year. Then he's maybe someone you hold on your bench and you have him and someone else and you stream them week on week instead of sort of dropping him and using the waiver wire with him. I think he's got the upside that he could be a guy you hold and don't want to risk losing in between weeks. But I think it's all how he builds on it, I think. Definitely got upside.
Yeah, interesting to see how that one develops. There's another couple of players I'd like to bring up. 2 wide receivers who I'd like to get your boys' opinions on. Sterling Shepard and Golden Tate. Do they have much value at all?
I think they're going to have value, purely just talking about the game script. Depending on where you draft them. I wouldn't say you go out, and I think any of these 3 receivers, it's a debatable one for who's going to really fill in where in terms of their fantasy ranking and their fantasy value. So I think you don't want to jump early on any of these guys. If you've got a guy, like I think for Sam, Slayton seems to be sort of his guy out of those 3, then go for your guy out of the 3 of them. But you're not going to be jumping early to any of these, in my opinion.
I think mine's based mainly off what we saw last year, with the sense that Daniel Jones coming in as a rookie, Slayton coming in as a rookie, they seem to develop something. And if you can get a quarterback wide receiver duo where they just seem on the same page, I like to have that on the fantasy. Maybe not stack them and have them both, but I want the guy, I want wide receivers who their quarterback and them are on the same page. Now, we didn't necessarily see a lot from Shepard last year because he had some injury issues. I don't think Shepard, because he's effectively playing the number 1 wideout role in that offense. He is the number 1. I don't think he's a number 1 receiver. I think he's a very, very competent number 2, almost in the same way that I think Tyler Lockett is a very competent number 2, but doesn't necessarily thrive in that top dog role. So
that's
I'm
a
not
comparison I was going to bring up. He's sort of the guy for Wilson, like Slayton could be for Jones.
Yeah, so I'm not as high on Shepard, and I think Golden Tate he's the slot guy. He will get targets, so you might find value in PPR and half PPR, but I wouldn't touch Golden Tate in a standard scoring league, I don't think. So, I mean, unless something going forward changes and Golden Tate or Shepard comes out and it's like, wow, they've got this amazing connection with Daniel Jones, then I don't like them for where they would expect to be drafted. I don't like them as much as Slayton. So Slayton would be my pick for value and what you'd get payback for where you'd have to take him. But I think Shepard, I wouldn't want to go for the other 2.
Yeah. I think for me,
really.
another name, Obviously, Evan Ingram, tight end. Tight end's always a big position in fantasy football, and Evan Ingram's one of these guys that he's thereabouts. We've talked about it a few times. The big four. There's the top two, and then below you got Mark Andrews and Zach Ertz. So it's Kelson Kittle, Ertz and Andrews. There's guys that always look like they could break into that. Ingram's one of them, and I'd say he's probably the closest if he can stay healthy. This is the biggest problem with him. If you see the big four go off the board, don't instantly jump and take Ingram as the fifth guy. You can leave it a bit more. He's not in that window yet. He's not up at that sort of range, so don't panic into drafting Ingram. He's a guy that if he stays healthy, would potentially warrant it, but it's just too much of a risk for me to spend an early-ish pick on him around those other tight ends.
He's in the OJ Howard bracket. There's got all the talent in the world, and you just, before you go all out, you want to see a complete 16-game season that he does it consistently. Because
definitely.
They've got Evan Ingram's got all the talent in the world. He's got a good quarterback throwing him the ball now, and he is the kind of guy who can break a ridiculous play. But before you go out and spend a high draft pick on him, you maybe want to see him do it a bit more consistently and stay healthy.
Yeah, 100%. But I think as you start to get towards when that second tier of Titans goes, you're looking maybe your 8th in an 8-team league, maybe about your 8th round.
Yeah.
Then go for it. If you want him around that 7th, 8th round, and you feel confident and you're happy with that potential risk, make sure you're going to probably need another tight end that you're going to have to stream at some point or bring in. But that's probably a decent value spot for him. That could have exactly lots of upside.
Exactly what I've done in our dynasty league. I've got Ingram, but I've also got a few other tight ends just in case. Hayden Hurst being one of them. So that's a nice combination. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking to trade Ingram, so we'll see what happens there. Ooh. I've been looking to trade him for a while. I've also got Dawson Knox as well, and I'm a big Dawson Knox fan. So
I could be interested in Ingram actually.
Yeah. But we'll see how that one develops. Send me off for Sam, and
I might have to slide into your DMs there and see if we can't make something happen.
It'd be nice to have a DM for once. So
yeah,
yeah. But on that bombshell, I believe that is all we've got time for today. So thank you, boys, for your time. As ever, please check us out on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. We're also on Instagram at the Brit Iron. That is our handle. And also check out our follower league, which we'll be setting up very shortly. It'd be great to get you involved and see where you pick some of these players up. So thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you soon.
See ya.